This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
Hello everybody and welcome to Monday's Blood Red podcast. The Reds are up and running with a 4-1 win on Friday night against Norwich. We're going to look back at that, look ahead to the Super Cup, obviously on Wednesday against Chelsea, and lots of other bits and pieces in between, including a little bit of transfer business, which we believe will be concluded today. Alisson's injury, of course, and various other bits and pieces. I'm Sean Bradbury, and with me today I have two young journalists who, well, let's face it, they're two of the first names on the podcast team sheet every week. It's Caoimhe O'Neill, it's Connor Dunn. We'll start just with a quick look at Friday and two very different experiences for the guys here. Connor, you were in the press box. What was it like on Friday? Did it feel a bit different to last season? Was there an atmosphere of European champions, or was it same old Liverpool?
Yeah, definitely. I haven't heard Anfield like that for a league game for a long, long time, actually. First half, absolutely bouncing, just welcoming home the European champions, weren't they? Obviously, I haven't played at Anfield for a little while and serenaded everybody's names. It was just lovely to see, and yeah, it was just like a big welcome home. And obviously that mosaic on the Kop as well, reminding everyone that Liverpool won the European Cup 6 times. Yeah, it was just pure party atmosphere, done by the first half, done by half time, and beautiful.
Did you bump into Delia inside Anfield, or was she?
No, I didn't actually. She might have been tucked away somewhere else, unfortunately. But I did see John Henry and Linda Pizzuti on the pitch, and really good to obviously see FSG getting a bit more involved, getting into more of the games, and yeah, got a bit of a reaction on social media seeing them there as well. So it's nice just to see them a little bit more, going to games a bit more now than they ever used to, and yeah, it just seems a bit more hands-on with the club. And
got like a celebrity status now, them two, haven't they? Anytime they're here, it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then you heard Caoimhe O'Neill. Caoimhe, how was your match day experience? Any different routines to normal for the first game of the season?
Well, it wasn't very good because my train was cancelled.
All right.
All the trains were cancelled. Power cut, the power cut that affected a lot of places. So I just ended up giving my ticket away pretty much, just because I was like, I can't make it. So that was bit of a nuisance, and then just went to the pub and watched it in sweet home Birkenhead. But yeah, enjoyed it as well. Obviously, it was a shame not to be there and seeing like the mosaic on the Kop, and you just feel like, why? You've got that like
all of the banners
that like
have been
pain
redressed,
of just
Klopp's
not
been added to the Immortals, and it's just things like that. Just so nice to see. But you'll get there and you'll see them all. They'll be back for the next home game.
It's a nuisance this, because I'm going to America on Wednesday, and I'm literally on a flight the whole time that we play the Super Cup and everything, so I won't even see that. And then obviously the time difference there is like 8 hours, so I'm going to be having to get up at like 6 to watch. Right. Like these proper American fans who are committed to it. I'm not sure how committed I'll be come Saturday morning, set my alarm at 6.
Just stay up.
There's worse places to watch the Reds in Vegas. I'm sure you'll manage. You'll pull through. Right then, well, let's start with the good of Norwich. If you look at the stats, I think we've had pieces on the site. The XG probably flattered Liverpool a little bit to be 4-0 up at half time. Maybe slightly fortuitous, but it was for good reason. There was lots of attacking play, lots of intent. What did you make of the attacking side of the game, first of all, Connor? The front three, given we're right at the start of the season, the rhythm they seem to be striking up already is pretty impressive.
The sharpness, I thought, was just unbelievable, actually. Obviously in the Community Shield, Salah and Firmino I thought looked really, really good, and they had City on the back foot, and they were obviously two of our brightest players then, and again against Norwich, it just, had them all ends up right from the very beginning, and that was what really stuck out of the whole Liverpool's game. And even when they weren't quite at it defensively, it was something to build on and something to press and just lead from the front. And Origi as well was actually superb and gave them nightmares down that left. A couple of really whipped crosses, obviously, the first one created the own goal and got a goal himself, and just all three of them were really firing. Mo Salah this season, I think, looks better than he's ever done, and that is just such a massive statement to say, but he looks stronger, he looks quicker, and I'm just so excited for him this season. Obviously, first shot of his Premier League season, scores a goal and just lets everybody know that 3-season wonder is back again.
Well, stay on Origi first of all. Well, first of all, Caoimhe, who's looking after the statue while you're in Vegas?
Well, I've had more messages now. He scored and got his tally underway, and I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna get round to it eventually. But I was so impressed with Origi because I've been saying for weeks on this pod, obviously, that I feel like he has to score and just keep scoring and doing bits, assists, whatever he can do, even just good performances and come away, with the fans sort of thinking, Origi's the business, and he looked the business pretty much, didn't he?
Yeah.
He seems to, because he's so tall, he's got such a big frame, he seems to just glide really, like in about 2 steps he'll be like halfway through the half.
He's a very direct player, which I think Liverpool sometimes miss a little bit. Someone who picks up the ball, gets their head up and just goes at the defence no matter where they are.
When he runs, he looks like, in American football when like they do that funny run where the legs like to go faster towards the end, that like and they go faster strides, and he just seems to like be able to do them. But I'm really happy, like we had it won pretty much in the half, and then I feel like we stepped off a little bit, but if we're doing that every game, I'm not really too concerned. People speaking obviously about the second half and the defence, but obviously Alisson going off is a big blow, and we'd already won it. It's we could have went on and scored 4 more, which was when we scored the 4th. You were thinking how many's it gonna be, but obviously Norwich weren't gonna get battered like that and then come out and just concede more. Obviously they were playing for pride then, weren't they? The first away day, first game back in the Premier League, and their fans had travelled an awful long way not to see them. So I think everyone in Anfield was pretty happy when that Pucky scored as well. Just sort of like, well, he kind of did deserve it, so let them have it.
No, absolutely. We'll come on to Norwich. Staying on Origi for a second, I agree with you both. I think I've always thought with him, as you've described him there, Connor, is exactly right. He's direct. There's a little bit of unpredictability about him, but you do know he can cut inside, he can come off the left and onto his right, shape to shoot and cause a bit of damage. But that own goal, and obviously it was very fortuitous the way it was sliced in by Hanley, but like he went down the outside for that, didn't he? And I think after a slightly shaky performance against City, where you did think, is he going to look a little bit out of his depth if we're relying on him from the start this season? He really kind of put that right. So I guess that's the next question. Do you think whilst it's only 1 game into the season, do you think he's kind of answered some squad depth concerns a little bit for Klopp?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there was obviously concern because he's an attacking player, isn't he? He's your striker who would play down the middle normally, but it was the left-hand side really what Liverpool were looking at to kind of get some cover for Mane and give Mane a bit of a break. And what was really evident in that game is that he looked like he'd been working on his crosses. It looked like he'd been working on, as you say, getting around the outside of players rather than just trying to go directly into the box every time. And again, that's just added something a little bit different to his game. And obviously that is what Mane does in sensational form and sensationally well. But yeah, I certainly think Origi, I know it's, with all respect, it's only Norwich and that isn't, going to be his biggest defensive test of the season. But certainly if he can play like that, then I've got no worries at all about who's coming in, because at the end of the day, you are never going to get a player better than Origi to sit on the bench in this transfer window, like by no means. And I'm just glad he's proved it.
I think he looks to be learning from Mane. He must be watching him in training and obviously in games and maybe even tapes of him, because he seems that unpredictability, what you mentioned, he seems to have that in him, and obviously you can't teach that, but I feel like he maybe is learning from Mane a lot in terms of just, you never know what he's going to do, and that's been one of Mane's like main things of him being such a good player. And I feel like Mane's got an abundance, and Origi's getting there, which is only good for Liverpool.
And before we move on, I think we must...
Do we have to move on from Origi?
We must mention Roberto Firmino. Oh, he didn't score, but that chest and volley that he hit across was just ridiculous. And, the work rate he puts in off the ball, he leads the press, he never gives up, he leaves everything on the pitch, he deserves the goal. He takes Liverpool forward, he brings that energy up, and, that front three is just Liverpool's pinnacle, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've robbed this off one of the fan accounts, but I love this quote. I think it was originally Del Bosque said this about Busquets, but one of the fan accounts has like repurposed this for Firmino and just said, watch the game and you might not see Firmino, but watch Firmino and you see the whole game. And like, I know he was a bit more standout than he often is, to be honest, against Norwich. He's like you say, there were so many moments where he was dropping deep, he was winning the ball, he was like plucking it out of the sky and just showing off his kind of remarkable technique as well as his work rate and everything. But just the amount that goes through him and the amount that he, like you say, leading the press, and I always feel he's Klopp's kind of persona on the pitch, really, isn't he? And he was just phenomenal. And of course, Salah we've already mentioned, so that front three looks in fine fettle, and long may that continue this season. Let's move on to the bad, if you like, about the game. I know you've mentioned it already, Caoimhe, Pukki's goal in the second half, and to be fair, Norwich deserved it, I think. And at that stage of the game, when it was obviously sewn up at Liverpool, you kind of felt, like you said before, all those fans have travelled that far. It's not ideal for our defence, and a few of them weren't too happy about conceding. But fair play for the fans to see that. It's not the worst thing. But those defensive lapses, the amount of shots that Liverpool allow, particularly in dangerous areas, was that a bit of a concern for you? Not
really. I think people are getting too strung up on it a little bit. It just seems as though we're not quite there yet. Like, we had the best defence in the league last season, and obviously we're going to probably have one, or if not, Man City or whoever else, we'll be right up there, and obviously hopefully a Premier League title race and up there for the best defence again. It's obviously a blow, like I've said, to have lost Alisson, and I don't think Adrian coming on had any effect on the game. I feel like maybe we did just pull up a little bit. And obviously the Community Shield, you saw it a little bit, but I feel like we'll just work out the kinks as the weeks go on. I don't think it's nothing to worry about, to be honest.
No. Connor, in terms of where the danger was coming from, I know that the goal eventually kind of came on the opposite side, but the kind of Gomez and Trent, the right-hand side of the defence was where the issues are. I mean, I'm not saying you want to bomb someone out after one slightly below par game, but do you think Matip might be coming in on Wednesday?
Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, I don't think it's a massive concern that Liverpool are conceding goals, but we gave Norwich far too many chances, and a better team would certainly have punished Liverpool in those early stages. Norwich could have had that first goal, and that would have been a totally different outlook to the game. It would have been a totally different game. They'd have probably defended a bit more resolutely and whatever else. And I agree that they will iron out the kinks and the issues in the next few weeks, but I think it started a little bit in front of the defence. It probably started a little bit in the midfield, and there were some holes that weren't getting filled. And yeah, it was just interesting to sort of see how that developed as the game went on. And as you say, it was only really Trent and Gomez's pace that got them out of a few sticky situations, particularly Gomez as well. He's really quick and very quick for a central defender, and I thought he played really well actually, but just the cohesiveness in the defence just wasn't quite there, and obviously Norwich were finding the gaps. I think for the goal particularly, I looking at it on first view, it looked like they were just trying to play an offside line and just got it slightly wrong, and that sometimes happens, and when you're 4-0 up you can more afford to do that. But yeah, I mean, in terms of Matip, I can certainly see him coming in just for the Community Shield. Obviously there was a few defensive issues which City exploited, and Matip came in, and granted, he came into a bit of an easier game, but when Gomez swapped to right back and Matip came in, I thought Liverpool looked a lot more resolute defensively. I thought him and Van Dijk in the middle just sort of seemed to shore things up a little bit more. And I'm a massive Joe Gomez fan. I think, what he offers compared to Van Dijk, like his extra pace and being able to play the ball up from the back, it's just a bit of a difference, and they work really well in tandem. But I think with the way Matip stepped up last year, and what Matip can do and how well he's defended, and actually just purely for the defensive side of it, I think I probably would start him in the Super Cup.
Well, we'll pick our team towards the end of the pod, but we might have already filled one slot there. Just staying with Norwich, Caoimhe, do you think they deserve some credit? I mean, we can pick holes in how Liverpool played. I think Connor's absolutely right about the goal and how that came about, but I think they're one of the only teams, apart from Spurs and City, who've come to Anfield and restricted Liverpool to under 500 passes at home for the past 2 seasons in the league. So, they came and had a go, didn't they? They were proactive, they were brave with the ball, and you've got to say that they forced themselves on Liverpool a little bit and did quite well.
Yeah, I think they'll take loads from that. My only sort of worry, I've put them in my predictions getting relegated. Sorry, Norwich. I don't think any of the fans will be listening, so I'm all right. But I was really impressed with them, and my only worry for them is that they could be like Huddersfield, who obviously just sort of managed to stay up that first season because they were playing, how Wagner wanted them to play, similar sort of heavy metal football, that, passing, moving, and not sort of just making a blockade and hoping for the best. But I feel like if they don't do that, and there is a bit of a hole in their defence, I feel like they'll just struggle, because it's a horrible thing, the Premier League, when you've come up as well, because they were such a free flow and scored a lot of goals last season in the Championship. I just feel like if they don't shut up shop, then they're gonna get probably beat like that every game. But then they've give you a good game, but is it enough? You need to win points, and that's sort of like I was thinking, maybe I shouldn't have predicted them to get relegated because I was so impressed by them. But I feel like going forward, they'll have to sort of, obviously, Daniel Farke said after the game, didn't he? I think they've got to work on that defence. And I think that's been an issue for them over the summer, and what they've tried to maybe do in the transfer market, and whether they'll be able to stay up. But I'm sure Delia will have a word, won't she?
They were the only team to spend less than Liverpool in the transfer window. I think they spent £1.1 million, and we all know about how many transfers Liverpool didn't make and spent £3 million. So that just shows you how little they brought in. But I was saying before the game actually to Paul Gorse, who was up in Anfield as well, that it was interesting to see how Norwich set up. Would they come think, we're playing the European champions, let's sit back, let's take up the pressure. If we get away with a 1-0, happy days, and that's not a bad start to the season? Or did they play the way they know how? The football out the back, they're trying to score the free-flowing footballs we've just spoken about. And to be fair to their credit, they did. And I think if they play like that against quite a lot of teams in the bottom half of the Premier League, they'll score some goals this year. And it might just be the case of, trying to outscore teams. And if that's how they play, that's how they play.
Absolutely. Well, best of luck to Delia and the lads. They came and had to go there. And
Delia and the lads.
Like you say, there will be easier games for them. Many to come this season. Last point on Norwich. I think you touched on this before, Caoimhe. So we'll just finish with you on this. Were you worried at all about what did seem to be a bit of a drop-off in the second half? Or do you think that was almost kind of tactical and deliberate with Wednesday in mind? I guess Norwich won the second half, didn't he? But 4-0 at half-time, Liverpool had it sewn up. Do you think that was kind of all planned?
Yeah, do you know what? I think it was a big statement in the first half. They didn't need to do much more in the second. Trent had that absolutely vicious free kick that was a good save, and there was one more chance as well. I think Salah could have had a couple more goals, and Liverpool just simply didn't need more goals. They didn't need to keep their foot on the throat of Norwich. They just, they could have one eye on Wednesday. They're travelling to Istanbul and back in the middle of two Premier League games, the first two Premier League games of the season. And of course, that's going to, be a thing to think about, and they had the luxury of doing that, didn't they? So not worried in the slightest that Norwich won the second half 1-0.
No, well, fair play to them. One thing that is a bit of a concern for the Reds, which we've touched upon already, but we'll look at in a little bit more depth, is the goalkeeper situation. Now, Conor, kind of talk us through the situation then. Obviously, Alisson out, expected to be out for several weeks. I think between 4 and 8 is the current estimate. Where do we stand at the minute?
So, obviously, new signing Adrian came on against Norwich, did okay. Obviously conceded the goal. Maybe could have done better, but by the by. He's the only senior option in Liverpool's squad. You've obviously got Grabara, who's on loan at Huddersfield. You've got Yaros, who is injured. And you've got Kelleher, who is just coming back from an injury and just returning to training. So they're the three young keepers, and they're essentially out of action. Kelleher will probably travel to Istanbul. But without Alisson, obviously, we need a second keeper. The transfer window's closed, so we can't buy anybody, but we can sign free agents. And Andy Lonergan, who joined the Reds on their US tour and played against Sevilla and actually did really well. And by all accounts, really impressed, gave a really good account of himself. And he went to Evian and he went up to Edinburgh, and he's been training. He's been based at Melwood as well. And, they've been really impressed by him. They obviously didn't offer him a contract with Alisson coming back and signing Adrian and everything else, but he has agreed a deal. He's agreed a 1-year deal with Liverpool today, actually. They haven't signed it yet. We're not sure quite when the actual signing is going to take place or when it's going to be announced, but it's all agreed. And yeah, he's going to be going to the Super Cup and he'll be on the bench. And what a story that is for him. And we were talking about, just before the pod, he's a very, very experienced goalkeeper. He's had more than 500 appearances in the Championship. And his last appearance was for Scunthorpe against, was it Rotherham? In League One in March, and Liverpool obviously plucked him out and looked at him as a fine example, and he's come in and done really well, and that's kind of the situation that is right now. And he probably isn't going to play. God forbid an injury happens to Adrian as well, but yeah, that's kind of where Liverpool are at the moment.
Caoimhe, we saw half an hour or so of Adrian on Friday night. Obviously, let that one goal in, which there's the debate about whether he could have done more there. But how worried are you in terms of him as I was going to say short-term replacement, but it could be medium-term, depending on how long Alisson's out for. Do you think it's a bit of a test for the whole team, isn't it, really? The back line in terms of playing without the main man behind them, but given what he contributes in terms of like distribution and build-up play, it could take something away from the Reds. But do you think they'll survive for the next few weeks?
Yeah, I think we'll be okay. Obviously, the Super Cup will tell us more because we'll get to see him, in a 90-minute spell and maybe even longer if it goes to extra time. I think he's got the right mentality for a goalkeeper that we need in our squad at this point. Obviously, Alisson's just been imperious, hasn't he? Like clean sheets for breakfast, lunch and dinner. Like he's unreal. So for him to come in, Adrian obviously he's got to fill these like massive gloves, and I feel like, I hope the defence pull him out a little bit and are able to, limit the shots on goal and stuff, just to, give him that. He needs as many clean sheets as possible, doesn't he? I think just to get the fans. I mean, the fans are right behind him anyway. You've seen the welcome he got when he come on for Alisson. Obviously, we haven't had a new signing that's going to play other than him. Harvey Elliott and Sepp Vandenberg might feature over the course of the season, but it's not going to be anytime soon, you wouldn't think. So for the Kop to get a new signing, which he didn't expect was going to happen, and then to welcome him out, the whole of Anfield, I think, and all the fan base was happy just to see someone with a new face around the place. I think it's a little bit of a boost, and I think he'll do all right. Alexander-Arnold was speaking about him and said he's come in straight away and just seems to have settled in, and loads of the lads are already getting on. So it seems it's been an easy sign, and he's sort of settled in to the dressing room really well. And obviously he's a Spanish speaking goalkeeper, isn't he? I feel like the culture of maybe Alisson and the likes of the Brazilian lads, he'll fill that Moreno sort of gap that we've lost now in the dressing room. And I think the games I saw him in for West Ham, he always felt like a loud goalkeeper and someone that would command his area, and hopefully that's what we'll see from him.
Yeah, I think you've got to think Adrian is a very experienced Premier League goalkeeper, and I think he only got let go by West Ham because of his wage demands, and he was going to go to La Liga, wasn't he? But Liverpool obviously signed him, and I think he's a really decent person to bring in, especially on a free transfer. You're not really going to get much better goalkeepers that have played in the Premier League for so long with such a lot of experience. And yeah, as you were just saying there, I spoke to Virgil van Dijk and Trent after the game, and they both asked them both about Alisson, and they were literally saying about how he's a really experienced goalkeeper. He's been around a long time. He knows how to come into teams. He knows how to settle in. He fits in really well with all the boys, and that is going to be so important, so important for the cohesion of the defence going forward, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, as Andy Lonergan comes in, also had news this morning that a possible outgoing for the Reds. We'll start with you on this one, Connor. Dejan Lovren. It's hardly right to say it's come out the blue. There's been a few rumblings of interest from Italy throughout the course of the transfer window that we've just finished. Well, certainly here in the Premier League it's finished. But now AC Milan, Roma, interest confirmed and a price set. Give us the latest on this one.
Yeah, so obviously you hear all throughout the transfer window from the Italian papers, from Tuta Mercato, from Marca in Spain. They link every player with everyone, and all the clubs are signing everybody, and they're all going to everywhere. But yeah, the reported interest from AC Milan, the reported interest from Roma is confirmed. They've registered that interest with Liverpool, and they're looking to add Lovren to their ranks. And Liverpool have set a €15 million fee with add-ons of a €5 million bonus, so a €20 million fee, which is not a huge amount, but it's substantial enough for a fourth choice defender. And that's kind of where it's at the moment. I don't think talks are in a particularly advanced stage between any of the clubs, but it would certainly seem that Liverpool have enough in their ranks to sanction a deal for Lovren and to send him on his way to Serie A by the looks of it.
This is the thing, isn't it, Kiva? It's, you look at the bench on Friday and he wasn't on it, Lovren wasn't on it, Brewster wasn't on it. On some kind of terms, you think, well, the squad is big, they can deal without him. But I don't know, when this initially happened this morning and Connor's stories first went up, my initial reaction was a bit tentative and, should they really let him go? Should they not try and be a bit greedy and hang on to him as a fourth choice player? Because I think, you look at Brewster and you'd be happy to have a young attacking player come into the team. You think that's potentially less disruptive than young defenders having to come in. As Connor says, there are options in the squad, but you might be looking at Hoover, Vandenberg. But then the more you think about it, Fabinho could fill in there. There's obviously Gomez, there's obviously Van Dijk. What was your initial reaction to it? Do you think it is a bit of a risk or something that LSE could get away with?
Obviously our transfer window's closed, so I don't like losing anyone after that. Obviously the European market's still open. I think there's 11 more days left to go on there, and it just seems as though you just don't want to lose anyone. Now I think this is probably maybe Lovren's choice more so. I feel like obviously AC Milan and Roma have registered their interest, but I feel like maybe it's Lovren just thinking he wants to play regular football, which you think going to either of them teams he probably will be, maybe first choice. But at Liverpool at the minute he's fourth choice now. Obviously if he's not sort of willing to hang around and sort of fight for his place in the team, then you've got to let him go and play his football. But I think it is quite worrying, what happened with Alisson on Friday, how an injury can just come out of nowhere. Like Alisson's probably, obviously had his Copa America excerpts, and you wouldn't think that he was like as fit as possible because he had that extended break and stuff. But he's one of the last players you would have thought would have got injured. So injuries can happen. God forbid Van Dijk or Gomez. Obviously we had Gomez and Lovren get injured at the same time last season, which gave Joel Matip his incredible opportunity, which he grabbed with both hands. But I feel like if Lovren does go, then does that leave that little bit of a gap? Obviously you've said about Fabinho can fill in there, but then it's, I don't know, just does leave that little seed of doubt in my mind if something does happen. This is going to be a long season, and to have someone experienced around the camp like him can only be a good thing. Obviously his relationship with Mo Salah is well documented, and I feel like he'd be a big loss in terms of personality. But then if he wants to go, would it be worth having someone round? Obviously we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but would it be worth having someone who is a want away? I'm not too sure.
There's certainly another school of thought to that, isn't there, to be fair? We've obviously mentioned these defenders that can come in and play, and I think you've got to look at it like Gomez and Matip are fighting for that place alongside Van Dijk, and they are both, excellent centre-backs, and that is why Lovren has fallen out of favour. He's on almost £100,000 a week. He's fourth choice centre-back. He's not even getting in the matchday squads. You've got more option than you had last year when the defensive crisis happened, because you have got Van den Berg, who is, one of the most highly rated young centre-backs in world football. You've got Hoover, who can obviously come in and do a job, and actually did a job when Lovren got injured. Lovren hasn't played 10 games in a row for Liverpool in his whole career, and he signed in 2014. That's 5 years, which is staggering, really, when you think about how long he's been at the club. And that's not to write Lovren off, because as you say, his experience is amazing. He obviously plays at an extremely high level. Having that sort of player who knows about, the finals he's been in, the games he's been played with Liverpool, and that experience, it counts for a lot. But I just think that Liverpool are in a better place, and particularly when you look at Fabinho, and Fabinho filled in that role against Bayern Munich, against Brighton last season so well. Like against Bayern Munich particularly, when you're coming up against some of the best strikers in football, and he just looked like he'd played there all his life, and I think he would naturally just become Liverpool's fourth choice centre-back, and that is another option that Klopp clearly has at his disposal. And then if you look at it like that, they've essentially got 5 senior centre-backs, which is more than enough to head to even January if something happens, when they could potentially buy somebody else.
Absolutely. Well, going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Now, before we move on to Salah, which we're going to discuss, given it's the 2-year anniversary of his debut and also the Super Cup, just a very quick word on other games at the weekend, and specifically City. Someone in our Blood Red podcast group, I think, jokingly said when they were looking at the game against Norwich on Friday, well, what about our goal difference, with that second half? Obviously, I think they were taking the mick a little bit and being a little bit sarcastic, but then City go out Saturday morning, they bang 5 in, 1 goal's chalked off as well, and Guardiola afterwards is saying, or indicating at least, that they weren't even firing on all cylinders. There's more to come. Caoimhe, did you expect anything else from City in their first game of the season?
No, I think the way they played against Liverpool, we kind of expected that, and you do expect them to run away with a lot of games, but at the same time you expect Liverpool to do that as well. So obviously I watched it a little bit through gritted teeth, because they just look so good, but it's going to be a long season, and I don't think you can take too much from the first game. And obviously, I think they've scored like 20 goals against West Ham under like Guardiola, or many, I think, just at West Ham Stadium. So they've absolutely battered them there.
They saw a stat that the top 4 away scorers at the London Stadium, it's like Sané, Sterling, Aguero, and it's just like great.
So the Hammers don't enjoy when City come to town. No. Obviously, you look at like United and that, and those teams seem to have, maybe will try more this year, have more of an impact than taking points off.
Yeah, United will certainly give City a game more this year than they did last time.
Most definitely. Yeah. So I think there's definitely, they look brilliant, but so do Liverpool.
What did you make of them on Saturday, Connor? Like they obviously, Liverpool went out and to a certain extent laid a marker down on Friday, but then it wasn't even 12 hours later almost, wasn't it? They were doing the same on Saturday. Is it going to be another one of them seasons where there's a statement made by each club every weekend and they're responding to each other and just, feeding off each other.
Yeah, well, they're clearly going to go toe-to-toe as the best two teams in the Premier League, aren't they? I think the difference in how City played that game is that they didn't have a midweek game against Chelsea in Istanbul to contend with. They've got a whole week break in between their two games, and I think that is the only thing to read into it, because they didn't take their foot off the gas for 90 minutes, but Liverpool, they did for 45. So you can read into what you will, but I think, Liverpool will definitely be up there with the goals as well as City.
Was it 1-0 to City, I think, at half time, wasn't it? And then they scored the other 4 goals after that. So they kind of we had different halves. They didn't have, obviously, the best first half. We didn't have the best second half. We both scored, 4 goals in, really quick time. And obviously Sterling had 1 ruled out as well. He would have had 4, wouldn't he? Which is, he just looks the absolute business this season, doesn't he? He looks like I put Sadio Mane as top scorer this season, but I feel like I feel like you've done good there, Connor.
Another performance we'll have to obviously remark on ahead of Wednesday. Start with you on this one, Connor. Is obviously Chelsea's slumping to a 4-0 defeat against United. Do you think is it good or bad news for Liverpool? Obviously, on the face of it, they've had a bit of a shocker. There seems to be lots of weaknesses and kind of teething issues in terms of Lampard setting his managerial imprint on the team. But then, if he's worth his salt, he's going to get a response out of them on Wednesday. What way do you think it'll work for Liverpool?
Yeah, I certainly think it's going to go the way of they're going to try and come out and play football. And, Liverpool versus Chelsea is always such a massive game for both clubs. And, recent history and things in Europe has fueled that no end. But they looked a bit all over the place, didn't they, really, at the back defensively? And I know they hit the woodwork twice against United, but I don't worry with Frank Lampard as a manager, personally. In a similar way to Solskjaer as manager of United, I don't think, oh my goodness, how are they going to set their team up and come and play against Liverpool? Because I think Klopp is going to absolutely outwit both of those without any hassle. Not to completely write off Man United and Chelsea, because that would be ridiculous. But I don't think they are going to be quite as strong as they've been for a few seasons. Obviously, the transfer ban's not helped. They've had to keep Zuma, who was at centre back in Everton last year, and I just don't think they've got the out and out best team. Tammy Abraham starting up front. He scored loads in the Championship, and that's great. But it's just a totally different kettle of fish playing in the Super Cup, playing against Man United in the space of 5 days. So.
I just don't think Chelsea have that kind of leader anymore, do they? I was looking at them yesterday and I caught the second half, and I was just thinking, Azpilicueta's probably their leader on that pitch, and he's is he in his 30s now, and obviously Frank Lampard doesn't seem like, you sort of hinted at there, he doesn't seem like, he's only got 1 year of experience in management. He doesn't seem like he'll have that sort of weight of, oh no, we're facing Frank Lampard. Maybe in 10 years' time that'll be the case, of course. And, he'd probably be the first to admit that you can't give anyone that, can you, after a year in the Championship?
You're just thinking, in terms of that, like, when Ferguson would come to Anfield or Mourinho comes to Anfield with Chelsea, you'd just be like, oh, this is going to be a game.
Just because of them, they bring their own, where this Chelsea team just feel, obviously, they've lost the talisman, Hazard, and they just feel a little bit, obviously, the transfer ban hasn't helped. They've obviously bought in Pulisic and Kovacic, yeah. And I don't know, they're still quite young. Well, Pulisic definitely is, and I feel like, it'll be their seasons to really bed in, won't it, as players, but can you put a lot on them? And obviously Abraham's only young. It just feels like Chelsea historically over the past, 10, 15 seasons, anytime a manager gets sacked or leaves, the first season under the new managers traditionally goes really well. They've won leagues in that year, and look at Di Matteo, they won the Champions League, but this season just feels different. But I do feel like it will be a thing for the future, maybe like in 3 or 4 seasons, Chelsea might sort of have that, even sooner, but not this season. I feel like they just will miss out on it.
There's no way around it. Eden Hazard is just such a massive loss. It'd be a massive loss to any side in the world, but he literally led Chelsea's attack, and again, he led their press, he led the energy, he led the attacks. Loads went through him, and what is it? The first season in 8, they've not started a season with him, and that's just it's just massive. And then you got that at the head of the field, and then you've got the likes that have gone in defence at the back, and it's just it doesn't feel like a Chelsea team that is going to really threaten Liverpool this year, and I might come really to eat those words hard on Wednesday night, but I just don't see it right now.
Well, I agree, and with all this in mind, then let's before we have a little bit on our Mo Salah memories, let's pick our team for Wednesday. So in goal, I think, that's clear, isn't it?
Andy Lonergan.
I was just going to say,
the new man straight in. Adrian is between the sticks. I think then it's difficult, isn't it? Because, like you were saying before, Connor, Joe Gomez you think he's the future of Liverpool, and I don't think he played that badly on Friday night, but was, possibly culpable for a couple of little lapses. I think Van Dijk and Robertson are in, aren't they? I think you can all agree on that.
Yeah.
How would you both play it then with your other centre-back and your right-back?
For me, Joe Gomez goes right back and Matip goes centre-back. I think for Norwich, you can get away with having Gomez and Trent in. Trent attacking ability is absolutely sensational. The pinpoint crosses, they're getting forward, they're bringing Liverpool out from the back, and that's what Gomez does as well from the heart of defence. He brings Liverpool out, he plays the ball, he's quite a forward-thinking central defender, and Chelsea will have a bit more, they will be able to pick Liverpool off a little bit more if those gaps are in place. So I think just for a more solid defensive unit, Matip comes in and Gomez goes to right back for me.
I wanted Matip to start against Norwich, but now I would just keep Gomez in just because of, I don't know, I just feel like I just don't like to, and also for Gomez, if he's getting pulled out after the first game of getting started, I feel like what effect does that have on, obviously he's got a strong mentality, they all have, but that must just leave a little bit in the back of his mind thinking, well, wasn't it good enough? And, so maybe just, I don't know, but then it is a cup game, so do you, even you can get away with resting him, but then it's not resting him, it's putting Matip in because you feel like he'll be more solidified next to Van Dijk. So it's a difficult one, but it just stick with Gomez just because, like you say, the continuity of it as well.
Fair play. Well, no, you both make good cases there. I think I'd probably side with you, Connor, especially because Southampton game comes around quite quickly. I think you can put Trent back in there.
I agree.
But there's two ways you could go. Midfield, I almost think anything could happen here. I'm not even sure there's a certain starter. Henderson and Fabinho. Both
it's tricky, isn't it? I think Fabinho is probably your one absolute starter. I think he can play that 6 role on his own incredibly well, and I think when he plays, it gives the other two in midfield a bit more of a chance to get a little bit further afield, a bit further wide, a bit further forward. So yeah, Fabinho would be my very first pick for the midfield.
Keeper?
I think I've got to go with Henderson as well because of the way he played on Friday. I just thought he looked like a different Henderson I'd ever seen. He looked like unbelievable. I don't know, and I haven't got anything to back this up, but I'm going to make the point. I think when he plays on the right of the midfield rather than the left, he looks a totally different player. And he was on the right for Norwich, and I just thought, there was a 20-minute period, and I was like, you look like the best player in the world right now. I remember him just spraying passes.
Flying, his tackles, his here, his there. Yeah, so, okay, yeah, well, I think Henderson comes in too. You've convinced me.
Because of winning the Champions League, I feel like maybe it's just, he's the same Henderson, he just plays with that little bit more confidence. Or are we now, is that sort of monkey off his back in terms of the fans, the fan base were a little bit divided, weren't they, about him, and now I feel like they're not.
Above, possibly.
So, yeah.
Okay, so we're going Fabinho, we're going Henderson. I mean, there's a case for Milner, isn't there, alongside them? There's a case for Gini. But I think if we're going to go Gomez
and Matip, I'm going Keita.
Yeah.
I would too.
Yeah, even though it's the other side of the pitch, and I just think in terms of overall balance, you let the midfield do the work. Keita tries to probe and push on through midfield. Is that unanimous there? Or?
I think against City, he looked really strong when he came on, and again in similar vein to Matip, he came in a slightly easier time. Liverpool were on the front foot, they'd made their sort of formation changes and closed up the gaps, but he just provided that little bit of extra creation, that little bit of extra running from the midfield, that little bit of extra looking forward, getting the balls into the box, and getting Liverpool really on the front foot, not just on the front foot pressing, but really going forward and getting City on the back foot. So for me, Keita starts, and I'd be really excited to see him. I don't think he's going to.
No, yeah, I agree with you there. Kiva, who do you want then, and who do you think he'll go for?
He likes Wijnaldum in these kinds of games, like you seen on Friday. I was thinking Keita would start, but then obviously Wijnaldum's name comes up, and it's not a bad player to have there because he's absolutely brilliant as well. But I think it feels like a European, it's obviously the Super Cup, Europa League champions versus the Champions League winners, and it feels like this is a game that would suit Keita more so, even though Wijnaldum's obviously featured in those types of games more. I just feel like this is his season now, and Klopp needs to give him that time, and I feel like Wednesday would be a great time for him to come on, and against watching Chelsea yesterday, I just feel like he could run riot and could just set him up for what could be his best campaign, and he could be one of these players in a few weeks where, you know, I mean, it's a conundrum anyway, isn't it? But he could be where we're not even questioning him, you know, the way Fabinho is now, and we're just, Fabinho's on the team sheet. I feel like he could, if he puts his mind to it and his feet to it, obviously, I feel like he could be, you know, them two could definitely be just the unwritten rule sort of thing. The name would just be there without even debating it.
So we're hoping for Keita, but we're probably expecting Wijnaldum. And then final decision, who starts on the left? Has Origi in this place, or have you got to throw Mane back in?
I think despite even Origi playing so well in that game against Norwich, when Mane came on, it was just different. It was just, and I know obviously we were 70 minutes into the game there and Norwich would have been tired and Mane was coming in fresh, but the standard Mane plays at is crazy. And, you know, we know that front three, we love that front three. The front three is the front three for a reason, isn't it? And I think Mane comes straight back in for me.
Yeah, Mane as well. And I feel like obviously got beaten in the AFCON final, didn't he? He'll have that little bit of it's a final, I want to win this one. And then, you know, roles reversed, Origi can come on later on and have a little American football sprint.
Right then, final thing. As we mentioned before, 2 years ago today against Watford in that 3-3 draw, Salah made his debut, got off the mark straight away when he bundled one in from Firmino, flicking it up for him at the back post. Give me then, I mean, we've talked endlessly about this fella, how he's transformed Liverpool, how he's one of the greatest Liverpool players in modern times, if not their entire history, if he carries on at the rate he is. But give me one moment, one goal, one thing that Salah's done on a football pitch that for you has stood out. I'll start. I mean, there's so many you can pick. He's done it in finals. He's done it in virtually every competition. The one for me, and he's done it against every team as well, hasn't he? All our main rivals. But I think that absolute thunderbolt against Chelsea.
This season, that was going to be mine as well. It's just a ridiculous goal, isn't it?
My season ticket, it was right down the line of it, and like I think I knew before he knew that was going in. It was just
it was ridiculous. Hit so true, so straight. It gets me excited now even thinking about it. What goal!
I missed it. I was at Anfield and literally by where he took it from in the main stand, and it happened that quick. I looked away and then it was in the back of the net. I was just like, thanks Salah. But I'll pick one from the season before because it was the goal that I felt like just sort of. I was like, who is this player? Like, he was then, you know, alongside Messi and Ronaldo for me at that time. And, you know, now he is a superstar in his own right. But it was the Roma goal because obviously we ran riot that night in Anfield. Yeah. And it just felt like everything he touched that season just literally turned to gold. And obviously it didn't work out in the end in the Champions League. But, you know, to stick with it. And he didn't have I wouldn't say last season was as good as his first season, yet we won the Champions League, so obviously it was.
And you got the golden boot as well.
And you've set that standard because of that first season, but he's just been ridiculous. Like 72 goals in 2 seasons is just remarkable. You know, we could be towards the end of the season saying, you know, Salah scores his 100th goal for Liverpool, like in 3 seasons. That's cult status. That's like legendary. You know, might have to get another statue built, mightn't I? But he's just a wonderful player, and what he's shown on Friday, and obviously a little bit in the Community Shield, is just that first half, second half of that season, where obviously his debut season. And I think this could be his best season because he's got that second season where everyone's worked him out a little bit, out the way, and now it seems like his touch is back a little bit quicker and his feet, and he's just can't wait to watch him.
I'll pick a different goal because there is just literally so many.
72.
Yeah. There's one against Spurs that really sticks out. Yeah. The one where he hits into the roof of the net of Lloris rushing on. You know, it showed pace, it showed trickery, it showed his feet, it showed his awareness, and just all of the skills that Salah has got 72 goals from, all rolled into a goal. And another one that's just a sensational effort. But then there's the one against Porto in the Champions League, isn't there? And
that's the one where he like kicks it up and like hits it with his head, and
it's just so many.
He does like a 7-up, doesn't he? And then he's just like, what are you? Are ridiculous
player. And then there's performances. You know, I went down to Bournemouth last season and he scored a hat-trick there and absolutely terrorised them. Like, just couldn't get anywhere near him. They were trying to foul him and couldn't. He scored a hat-trick, and it's just a crazy player, isn't he?
No, he's absolutely something else, and fingers crossed we see another one of
and
the
a lovely
Mo
human
Salah
being.
collection. Well, he is.
So.
Yeah, does seem like a great fella. Yes, and he's almost certain to be one of the Reds' main threats on Wednesday. Start the season, banging form, got his goal on Friday night, so we shall see what he can do.
I'd run into a lamppost for him anyway.
Oh, yeah,
100% break my nose.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right, well, we will leave it there. We will be bringing you all the build-up ahead of Wednesday's game here at HQ in Liverpool, and we'll have Doyley and Gorsty out in Turkey for the game itself on Wednesday. So yeah, fingers crossed the Reds get it done and get their first piece of silverware on Wednesday night. And we'll be back Thursday and Friday to assess it all on the next Blood Red. Thank you for listening.